I thought there was a better targeted approach. I'm working with Jim Sensenbrenner to revise the Patriot Act to make it clear to them that they have misinterpreted, I'll be kind.
That's too kind.
Yeah, the Patriot Act. So, and the collection of the metadata from the communications companies, when they gave us their answer to our questions in a top secret, our SCIF in the Capitol, they told us they need that because the phone companies don't keep the records, so they have to collect it. So the easy part of that is to tell them they can't collect it, but the phone company should be able to keep those records. I'm doing trying to get our leadership to buy off on a 10-year plan. So there was a targeted way to deal with this, but I'm gonna add on to your question.
Sure.
Since that vote, there have been two revelations that the NSA is a lot more rogue
Yes, sir.
than just the collection of that your phone number called this phone number at this time in that duration. And so it seems to me now that we have a lot more work to get this agency under control.
And I would just add that you also have an obligation to do so.
I'm going to hold the phone.
I would agree.
Okay. I got a couple. First of all, welcome to no matter what Forbes says, the best small town in America. Anyway, I was reading a book the other day, and I'll just shorten this a lot. And this is it was a chapter about demographics and voting, and this was the bulk of this whole chapter. Sandra Fluke, a Georgetown University Law School student, was barred from testifying at a Republican congressional hearing on the Obama administration's policy requiring religious collateral contraception. When she appeared before the House Democratic panel and testified to the difficulties female students had on reproductive services, on her Rush Limbaugh accused her of having so much sex she can't afford contraception. On his live radio show, he called Fluke a prostitute. Many advertisers immediately dropped the radio show and he stayed on the air. We go farther into the book, and it talks about how Jimmy Carter was a genius for getting up the Panama Canal, and how Obama is the world's savior, and how Bush basically stinks. It goes on and on and on. I was able to rebut fact after fact after fact that was laid out at the beginning with every conservative politician cutting costs. Therefore, we don't have cops or teachers. But we don't mention anything bad about the Democrats. The title of this book is my daughter's AP Government History government class in Papillion, South High School. We are not a Common Core state, and I'm going to ask you if you will please continue to support us as a not Common Core.
Absolutely.
Support the DOED when we could put that money somewhere else. Do you know someone who I could forward this book to? The links, I'll give you her access information, but she's shaking her head.
There's actually good news on that front, and that the House did pass a ESEA, Secondary Education Act, that gave undid the unflexibility of the No Child Left Behind, moved that flexibility to the states, not only with Common Core, but with all of the issues, but particularly it was specific on curriculum. So if we can get the Senate to take that up, then we're covered. It gives the states the rights to set what their curriculum would be. And then the school districts choose the textbooks, because I ran into an issue once that Joe Jordan got me in trouble with, but he likes to do that, with the Brooke Miller schools on global warming that also was accompanied by a video showing my son that I was corrupt as a member of Congress. Wow. It said that, and it had dollars flowing out of the Capitol. So I feel your pain. And also there was specific language, because I talked to the chairman of that committee and told him, I said, there's got to be specific language in here about the president's program on this, which a lot of Nebraskans, so it's a bipartisan opposition in Nebraska. It's not a Republican or Democrat or really conservative or Republican. Race to the top. And so there was also funding in there on the curriculum aspect of race to the top that forbid that from even being funded. funded, and that was in the base, that's in the bill. So we're well aware of that.
Mayor, over this direction. Yes, sir.
In the sequester defunding, that's a 10% cut across the board, I believe. 10, 15, whatever percentage is. Has anything been done to take money away from all the foreign aid? That is one big problem.
Senator, what is the percent of the national spending that is foreign aid?
Well, first of all, that's a good point, but you're out of order. So the question is on foreign aid. I do believe in foreign aid if it is directly related to our security. Now, so that means you have to go through this line by line. And just buying off countries to make geez, don't hate us is not appropriate. But I'm gonna zero in on Egypt, because that's the one that everyone's saying defund now, and it is a complete mess. And I really believe that putting Morsi in charge or supporting that was a poor move for our national security. And I'm actually pleased that there is an effort then to remove those that are by their own people, those folks. So the issue is now, since it's such a cluster in Egypt, who do we support? Because it is important for us to have the Suez Canal until we are completely independent of our dependence on OPEC oil and other goods and services that flow through the goods flow through the Suez. So basically, we've been paying them to be the security. They're being paid under foreign aid to enforce the peace agreement with Israel, and I think that's important to continue to fund. So when you say just look at foreign aid, I think there are places in there that we need to put under a microscope and cut those. But just to say eliminate the foreign aid portion of it, I'm not going to do that.
I'll say eliminate, cut it the same as did everything else.
Well, that is under this part. So all sequestration hit every agency. So the foreign aid, the State Department has to cut that 10% too. So they have been hit by sequestration.
We're going to move back again. Ma'am in the teal, I think you had your hand up the very first time of the morning. So.
Thank you so much. Congressman Terry, I'm Frances Mendenhall, and we really appreciate your having these open forums. It's critical for our democracy. I'm with Citizens Climate Lobby. There are several of us scattered out the room where people raise their hands. Some of us got badges, some of us didn't. We are very excited today because we have some breaking news about how the climate problem might be addressed, especially a solution that would appeal to conservatives, a very small government solution, a market-based solution. So give me 30 more seconds, okay? Yeah, I'm trying. Citizens Climate Lobby is our group, and the solution, I'll be very succinct, but try to listen now. We advocate fee and rebate, a fee on carbon at the source, which all of it goes back to households. Now, some people might say that's a tax. We don't like to call it a tax because it doesn't stay in the government. Hear me out, hear me out, hear me out. It does not stay in the government. All of it goes back to households. And it has a magical effect on turning it around so that people have an incentive to use less carbon, and so that the carbon polluters have to pay to clean up their own trash like all of us have to pay. Now, I know this is a tight schedule, and we would really like 10 minutes after this appointment for all of our CCL people to talk
Francis,
to you.
what I would like to do, because I'm on a tight schedule too, but I would be glad to make a half an hour and let your whole group come to my office.
In the middle, in the back.
Talk to him? Talk to who?
By the way,
talk to her.
I'll introduce some of my staff here. Felicia is the new boss of the office. She is the district director. Dean does our veterans and military and police outreach work. And then Acela is kind of our the newest person on staff. She does the immigration work and just kind of a wide view of outreach.
In the back, standing up. Yes, sir, in the green t-shirt.
Yeah, thank you. I guess, in knowing that there are many hardworking families here in Nebraska and within our community that are adversely affected by our outdated immigration laws, I guess my question for you is, do you support keeping families together, particularly those of mixed legal status?
Well, that's like saying, do you like apple pie in America? And, of course you want families to be together, but the ultimate question is related to the immigration. And that gets a lot tougher, and it's not so as easy as do you like families, puppies, and kids. I'm being a little bit sarcastic with that, and I shouldn't be because it's a really important issue, but the reality is it is more complex than that. So if you're going to ask me, do I support the Senate bill? I do not. I think it's too weak on border security. It doesn't have the as I've talked with other groups before, I am not there on a pathway to citizenship. I don't think that even if you had a pure heart, that you were just helping your family and trying to make a living and you came here, that you should get the brass ring for doing that. There may be other ways, but borders security, there was just an incident of someone crossing the Mexican border that had some materials that we didn't want in the United States. So it has to be all borders and ports of entry. And in reality, too, one of our biggest issues with illegal immigration into the United States is from visitor visas, where they come here on a 6-month, go to Disney World, and then never go home. So part of this has to be, how do we strengthen the current and make them more usable? And I'm going to agree with you on another point that was inherent in your question, and that is, when we have a system that's as broken as it is, where people who are trying to get here legally are waiting 10 to 15 years, that has to change. That's wrong, and they're an agency that has had a name change but not a culture change. They are stuck in the 1970s in how they operate their business. And so whether we're talking about quotas or tying the numbers or your entry into a job, those are all details that will have to be discussed, but we have to have strong border security, E-Verify, and really a sensible redo of our ICE immigration policies.
Come back over here. Man with the pencil again.
Just as a follow-up on that, what's wrong with 13 years of paying and for citizenship? What's wrong with that path, having 13 years and the cost of it? And also, what would you do with the dreamers in order to help them become tax-paying productive citizens and come out of the shadows?
Well, the Dreamers are a really difficult group because it really tugs at my heartstrings that people came here not of their free will, but with their parents. And so it still is an issue, though, of how we work with them. I'm going to come back to my first. I will deal with that issue, the Dreamers. I partially answered your question on the pay and wait 13 years on citizenship. So here's what my thoughts on it are. Once we get border security and E-Verify, and the reform of the immigration policies in general, then I think we can then look at those folks that are here. And the first group that we would look at are the Dreamers. But this has to be what's our priorities. And I think making our entry, because I had a gentleman the other day tell me, he said, you people in Congress are really hypocritical on this because all of you are products of an immigrant. And was that the hypocrite part? So, but my point is, 1920 was a different era. 1890 was a different era. This is an era that in the world today, we need to know who's coming in our country and not, so things are different there, and we do need to know. And I will also then reiterate what my answer to this gentleman back there, and that I don't support a pathway to citizenship. Now, there may be another legal status there, because that's the brass ring. I mean, if they want to, then maybe they could go back, if their goal is citizenship. Well, you could with the legal status.
This kind of follow, somewhere in the center. Yes, sir.
So, basically I keep hearing, this is regarding immigration, so I keep hearing you say that border security has to come first.
Yes, I've been saying that for 10 years.
We now spend more on border patrol than we spend on all other federal agencies combined, that's FBI, NSA, and CIA. And so we keep throwing money at the border without actually fixing this outdated immigration system. So when I try to fix the rest of the system, so it's workable in ways that people or immigrants, future immigrants, are able to apply.
Okay.
Why isn't that the priority, I guess?
What the priority is?
Yes, fix the immigration system.
Well,
the underlying.
That's part of the solution. But the reality is, we learned from 1986 that
But
you
that
weren't
didn't
here in
fix it.
1986.
No, of course I
You weren't born yet. But what we learned is that there was amnesty and there was no change to
I'm
the
not asking
law.
for amnesty. I'm asking for fixing the underlying system.
Well, and I said that we need to do that, but it needs to be part of that with the border security. Because you have to know who's coming in and out.
Yeah.
All right, I think we could all agree with that. And I would respectfully disagree. Well, I don't know what the exact numbers for the budget for the border patrols versus last year or the year before. But I don't think the border is secure. Borders. I think there's a long way to go for both northern, southern, and I will tell you our ports of entry outside of those two borders are wide open.
I'm gonna move over. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Kelly, and in February, I got to visit your office, met some of your aides, and got to tour the Capitol. I enjoyed that, so thank you very much for arranging that. I live in Millard suburb not far from here. I am here to ask you to use your power and influence to do something brave and bold for Nebraska that will make your name legendary in an admiring way. TransCanada
That would be the difference from current.
We need somebody brave here. TransCanada is calculating to make huge profits on placing a scarf pipeline over our land, over our aquifer from which our drinking and irrigation water is drawn. The dangerous bitumen, poisonous tar sands, if you will, is not going to bring oil to the United States. The pipeline is not simply a series of off-ramps for oil anywhere in the U.S. It is for bitumen that is destined for the Gulf of Mexico only. Here it will be processed into grade 4 diesel outside any current country's oversight. It is illegal to use grade 4 diesel anywhere in the U.S. and it is too polluting even for us to use. Also, the jobs that TransCanada speaks of in building the pipeline will only be for transient labor, most likely immigrant labor from which many Eurocentric Nebraskans have to stay. TransCanada has admitted that they will need about 35 I am asking you to abstain from looking to how you see profiting from this as Nebraska in the short term, and do something brave and right and tell Obama to not approve this pipeline. Thank you.
I'm on the Keystone Pipeline, but I disagree with a lot of what the links in there, and frankly, I really didn't say yes or no until this environmental impact study was done, and it disagrees with that that study and two other
The study is
supplementals.
flawed.
Thank you.
In
We're
detail.
gonna go ahead and move over here. Ma'am, in the chair.
Well, I agree that when laws are passed in Washington, the representatives in the Senate should abide by what they pass.
Okay.
Now, we have been hearing that this Obamacare that was passed for all of us is now not going to be what you guys have to define. Would you explain that?
Yeah, I'd love to explain it. She said that Congress needs to live by the laws it passes, and I agree. So, in the Obamacare Act, there was an amendment put in that all members of Congress and their employees cannot be in the employee portion that we are. And by the way, it's mandated that employers over 50 cover theirs. So this is an exception to the rule, but that we have to go into the exchanges. Okay? So,
What does that mean?
The-
Not covered by Obamacare?
well, everything's going to be Obamacare on January 1st. So the reality is, we still have to go into the exchanges on January 1st. None of us asked the president to do what he did. And frankly, he doesn't have the authority to waive that.
Yes.
So,
Senator Grassley.
Senator Grassley's amendment, yes. So, the issue that he waived wasn't that we no longer go into the exchange. What he said is, the employer is still going to pay their 70% that they do now for all of the federal employees. So this was a byproduct of some of my colleagues saying, how do we pay somebody $30,000 a year and they are mandated to pay $10,000 in insurance because their employer won't pay zero, which, by the way, is contrary to Obamacare, because under Obamacare, the mandate on employers is at least 60%. So I wasn't asking for that. I was willing to live for that, live with that decision going into the exchanges. By the way, congressmen and their employees are the only federal employees that will go into the exchange. So I think finding out how the exchanges will really work will be kind of an interesting process, considering they're supposed to be open to enter on October 1st, and the HHS hasn't even written the rules yet.
Over here. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm gonna keep it much briefer. There's been a lot said about the total output for Congress this year. I heard one statement was 28 bills was all that got out. I'm not sure if that's true. Boehner says that we shouldn't pass anything other than repeals. And
On Obamacare,
no, he was talking about. I thought he was talking about something different.
Okay, go ahead. I won't interrupt, so I didn't know.
And I just want to know where you stand on continuing with that stuff. Are you proud of what we accomplished this year?
Now, I'll tell you what, the answer is, Congress hasn't produced a lot.
Did you hear the question back
No.
there? Can you
So
repeat it?
Congress hasn't produced a lot. Boehner has said that the only votes we're gonna take is on repeal. That's not the whole sentence of what he said, and I'll mention that. And are you proud of that?
No.
And no, I'm not proud of what Congress has done. But the 28 bills is what has passed the House and the Senate and made it to the President's desk. If you look at the House of Representatives, and by the way, if any of you think I can control a senator, especially Senator Reid, I'm gonna just admit to you, I can't. So, we have done, I don't know what the number is, but my guess is we're well above 100, maybe 150 bills. We've taken 1,000 different votes when you add in all of the amendments. So if you say, is the House working? I would say yes. If you say the totality of Congress working, I would say no, and I'm not proud of it. And if I was told to say, do you approve of Congress today? I wouldn't, because I'm very frustrated with the fact that we can't do major things, or that we pass a farm bill and the Senate won't even talk to us. So the other part of that was, I want to clarify Boehner's statement. When he was saying we're only going to take votes to repeal, that was in reference to whether or not we're going to do small bills to try and fix Obamacare.
said that.
I'm gonna move to the back corner. Yes, sir.
Proud to be a repeater.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm frustrated by a law that doesn't really seem fair. I'm dealing here with a, what's the word? Can't even think of it here. My wife is disabled. She has spina bifida, and she's an amputee. And she was getting SSI Medicaid before we got married, which is in November of '07. And the law goes, as some of you may know, that instantly she loses her benefits. So she has not been on Medicaid, and I had the money then to take care of what I needed to, and I thought, well, that's fair, I can do my part. So right now, though, we have $55 to our name total. We're trying to make it to the end of the month. But for ourselves individually, but maybe more so for the nation of other people, you know, you have Christians who at a young age want to do what's right and get married instead of shack up. But they're being forced to shack up, or they'll lose their benefits if one of them is dependent. And it's the same thing on the other end. People have been Christians for 60 years. There's two empty nesters wanting to get married. One of them is disabled and gets the benefits, but when they get married, they won't be able to. So they're forced to decide whether to break God's law and shack up, or whether to break our law or go bankrupt. We were bankrupt last year. I have 6 digits worth of assets about 6 years ago. And we've been very frustrated the last couple. Well, I officially retired. I'm 67. I'm already on Medicare. Our total income is going to be $1,380 a month. And thank goodness we can move into income-adjusted housing. But the comprehensive health insurance pool is the only Medicaid, the only financial help my wife can get. That's premiums that cost $458 a month. I've been in touch with a man named Spencer at your local place here.
All right.
And he was going to be talking to you about this. And my question, obviously, is what can be done to make this fair? It doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, I'm going to admit there's a lot of unfairness in many of these programs, particularly when it comes to marriage, because it's all asset-based, as you know. And we're trying to do that. Now I'm going to come back and just kind of give you the process. I've been accused that I talk too much about process, but the answer is it is really tough to make those type of changes, because you have to come in to this section and this section and make fundamental changes to that. And once you open it up, then every amendment is germane. And so when you ask, why won't you guys bring these simple fixes up, the reality is because it opens all of the doors. But there's no doubt that these type of things need to be looked at.
You're kind of in the center in the back. Yes, sir. It's very, very, very back.
Before you do this whole immigration dance, why don't we just enforce the laws that are on the books? You might have to not have to do a whole lot if you do that. You can't even. They arrest a van full of illegals out here in the interstate. They come down, ICE won't even open the damn door. Now, what's up?
Well, and that's, it's been a problem for a long time.
Yes, it has.
And,
so if you're going to pass a bunch of bills, you're going to enforce them?
Well, you raised a good point, and if there's new bills, I would hope so. That is our intention. And right now, the executive in charge, which is the president, is making different decisions. And I think that leads into the difficulty of passing immigration laws, is the fact that they're not being enforced now.
We'll shift over kind of the middle. Yes, ma'am, in the green shirt.
Congressman Curry, I appreciate your support of defense and your support of veterans and active duty families, and I would encourage you to continue to support defense. And the sequestration, as you know, unfairly targeted defense. Department of Defense employees were the ones that were furloughed, not necessarily NHS and some of the other federal agencies. So I would ask you, when you go back in September, would you vote to repeal sequestration? I know a lot of Republicans like it because it does cut spending, and while I'm very, very much in favor of a balanced budget and cutting spending, you don't like to see the biggest cuts coming from defense. So would you vote to change sequestration so that it doesn't target defense?
Yeah, you use two different words, and one I agree with and one I'm not.
Okay.
If you say repeal or end sequestration, no. Because I'm going to be blunt. Those are probably the only real budget cuts that we're going to get. And defense absolutely took the hit. 50% of sequestration is defense.
And that's wrong.
And it is wrong. And so can we change and work within that parameter? Yes. And a lot of this has to go, and I'm going to be blunt, there's a lot of redundancies within the Defense Department, programs that are way out of date but still funded with billions of dollars because perhaps they're being built in Mississippi or something like that. We have to give, and this is where it comes back to Chuck Hagel, he doesn't have the flexibility that he needs. I think they can implement sequestration without having to get down to the employee level. They can do it, in another way, then come back to us and say, we've done our best, here's how we're gonna approve it, we still need some more money for this program, then come back to us and that would probably fly through without even an objection.
Move over here in the middle. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Obama is out promoting Obamacare, especially for the young, trying to get them to approve of his program. And I know they're targeting Republican states.
They are targeting?
That's what I've heard. They're targeting Republican states where
yeah, I know the president's out there. I don't know where he's all going, but if it's there may be a little bit of politics in there. I'm guessing. I don't know.
Well, and obviously, if he's targeting all the states that are, are Republican.
So yeah, the president is out, and I frankly would expect him to. That's his one accomplishment.
But we're paying.
That's a major accomplishment.
Yeah, but we are.
I just disagree with it. Yeah, I understand. There's a lot of things underneath the radar that they're doing to pressure us to.
Let's keep the conversations down. We got a few more minutes. Just start standing up.
Which one? Blue shirt?
Blue shirt.
Congressman, thank you for coming to talk with us about these issues. I agree with your answer you gave on the defense. Spent the last 10 years in the Marine Corps, the Marines underneath me, and twice there's been issues with budget, and Marines asking me, how are we deploying? And we don't know if we're going to get paid. You briefly touched on that. Is there any possible solution you can come up with that would avoid that issue, so that men and women that are getting deployed can't get paid?
Well, no, I think, are you talking about closing down the government or sequestration? Or both?
I don't care what we do with closing it down or sequestration, that's fine. But either or, that's fine. With the in-state being that we continue to pay.
Here's the only process way to make sure that our military is going to be paid if there's a closure. Sequestration, they've already dealt with the active duty pay. In fact, in the DOD appropriations bill we passed, there's actually a real 1.8% increase, just like there has been every year, in active duty salary. Now, I don't know what I'm going to point to there. We passed the DOD appropriations. If the Senate would do that, and then the president signed that, then that's off the table. And so even if there was a government close down over Obamacare, that would be untouched because that's already been made into law. So that's the only way procedurally to protect the Department of Defense and the active duty military.
Over in here. Yes, sir.
My name is David Hanson, a retired electrical engineer, and I've worked in the Omaha area most of my career.
By the way, you're much needed, so if you want to unretire, there's a lot of companies that can want you.
Well, my question today is I've been made aware that there's some legislation in the House called the Skills Visa Act.
Yes.
Can you address that, and will you support that?
Yes. The Skills Visa Act is to provide the ability for a person that's come here to the United States to go to school, and they are within the STEM science, technology, engineering, math field. They get an advanced degree here. Current immigration law says once they're done with their education, they have to go home. And as you're hinting at, there's a need for those type of people. I mistakenly got in.
Those kinds of engineers are hard to get today.
And why would we want to train really high-level tech people, engineers, and then they go back to India or China? So, yeah, I'm actually a co-sponsor of that bill too, and it's been passed twice.
The best fix would be to educate, U.S. citizens and pump that up.
Yeah.
But that takes a while to do that.
Yeah. We got a couple of questions more that we can do.
Well, we have 5 minutes. I'm going to give one last question to somebody who I don't know if they're ready for, but they probably always have one, and then maybe let you do a closing statement. Mr. Joe Jordan, you're probably the most unbiased person here, and you always have a question. You want to present one?
Well, Congressman, I guess the question I've got in relation to this entire group would be, how do you cope with these varying degrees of philosophy? And try and take that back, because you've got people here who are clearly on the left, you've got people here who are clearly on the right, you yourself are a conservative. What do you say, for instance, to the left to appease them somewhat, so they just don't leave this room thinking you're not listening to them? And at the same time, what do you say to those who clearly support you but want you to go even further?
For those that are not aware, Mr. Jordan is with Nebraska Watchdog, and a journalist, so thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
And really the last, when he left Channel 3, he was the last of the real political reporters. And so, yes, I am trying to suck up to him. Somehow that really works. It is tough in the Omaha metropolitan area, or since we're here, the greater Papillion area.
The Papillion Metro.
The Papillion Metro.